Hi peeps, Mike the Mank here, and this video is going to be a little bit of a impressions video, a little bit of a thoughts video on probably what's regarded as two of the biggest titles that's probably going to be released this year, and that is BioWare's Anthem and Ubisoft's or Ubisoft Massive's The Division 2. So I had the pleasure of playing both of the games, pre-ordered both of the games, as well as playing Anthem's open beta, and we'll have the option again to play the Division 2's open beta, which I believe is on the 1st, I think, of the next month. So that should be interesting to see if any of improvements have been made to Division 2 since the private beta. So I'm going to give my opinions and my thoughts on the two games, firstly beginning with Anthem. I'm going to give the pros and the cons of what I found and thought about the game after playing the two beta. So with Anthem, I managed to play obviously the beta, played the closed and the open beta. Now, the closed beta was, probably you may have heard if you didn't get a chance to play it yourself, but for the closed beta, it was renowned for being absolutely horrific to even try and get into the game. The reason it was horrific was because there was an infinite loading screen that the game had, so any time in which you try to join a expedition or do a mission or anything like that in the game, you would meet the real end game boss, which was the 99% loading screen. And in the closed beta, this would happen pretty much every single time. So what you had to do was you had to come out of the game, of the app, no matter what platform you were on. It was happening on all of the platforms, I believe. So you had to come out of the game and then go back into the game and rejoin when it came up with the prompt, do you want to rejoin the last expedition or mission that you were on? If you pressed yes, you would actually then be sent back to the mission straight away, the one that you originally picked. If you didn't do this, if you said no, you would go back to Fort Tarsis and you would have to repeat the same cycle over and over and over again until you realise what you actually had to do. So when that was figured out, and obviously we got into the missions, how were they, how was the world, anything that I liked, and there was a lot I liked about Anthem. A lot of people were very quick to compare Anthem to Warframe, to Destiny, to a lot of generic looter shooters. Borderlands was another one that was thrown out there. Even Fallout it was compared to, which is a little bit odd. So yeah, they were some of the titles that were kind of thrown about as opposed to what Anthem was or what it gained as influences. Now don't get me wrong, it obviously has a lot of influences. It probably borrows a lot of stuff from, say, Destiny 2, maybe little elements of Warframe, but I would actually say that the loot system is more, I think, reminiscent actually of Division in terms of the way in which it drops loot and the rarity of it and the perks and what you can get and the different loadouts, which is actually something that I'm going to mention in a bit, which is one of its big strengths. The first thing that I'm going to mention is that the world of Anthem is absolutely gorgeous. It really is a very, very gorgeous place. It's very vibrant. It's very obviously floral. It does have a kind of a post-apocalyptic feel to it, as opposed to the amount of undergrowth and overgrowth and just general plant life that is there. It's very, very nice to see. There is a lot of different biomes as well, which we didn't get a chance to see all of them, but I have seen footage of people playing other content within the game, which has shown different biomes, so that'll be quite interesting to see that. It's nice to see and know that there is other biomes in the game, as opposed to it just being constantly of the same kind of biome, if that makes any sense. But the game world is stunning. Flying around it is also really, really good. Really, really nice. The flying mechanic in general, I thought was well done. Was not known, as opposed to when I played on a PS4. So I played both games on console, so I wasn't aware or sure of how it plays on PC. I did hear that on PC it was a little bit awkward to fly, and that the devs were implementing a better way to use keyboard and mouse, which I think is a good thing, obviously. But for controller, it felt great. It felt quite easy to use. It took a little bit to get used to it, but once you did, it was very easy to grasp and get a hold of, which was good. The flying, for the most part, was responsive. I would say that it wasn't. There was the odd occasion where you'd end up banging into things, and I don't think that was the flying mechanic. That was probably myself as a player, and also I would say that there are some instances where they've put things in really awkward places where you would want to fly over them. For example, there's mines that are in levels that can do a lot of damage to you. So it's best to probably fly over them so that they don't detonate. However, there are certain areas or locations where flying in this kind of environment or area is a little bit of a detriment, because it's kind of very narrow tunnels and openings and things like that. So I would put it down to maybe more level design. Overall, the flying was really cool. I think it's what makes Anthem unique, as well as another point that I'm going to mention. It makes it a very unique game, as opposed to people comparing it to Warframe and Destiny, in which you don't fly anywhere. So, and it's very cool the way in which they have the mechanic of the cooldown system, which for those that have no idea what I'm on about, is basically your Javelin, which is the robot, the Iron Man robots, if you want to call them that. They can fly for a duration. They can obviously go up to a certain height. However, if they're not cooled down, they will actually burn out. So you need to actually learn, it's quite a skill to cool the Javelins down so that you can basically keep flying for longer periods. I assume that obviously the more game time that you put into the game, that you'll probably get perks to extend it further and make sure it doesn't burn out as quickly and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be interesting to see at a later game how you could probably utilize that and keep flying for longer periods. But nevertheless, it felt good, and it's definitely something that puts Anthem in a league of its own in terms of gameplay. Controls overall, again, I thought were intuitive, were responsive, easy to get a grasp of. It wasn't too difficult to switch weapons and move about and use your abilities. Each ability is mapped out on the UI, which, you know, is easy to read and easy to kind of look at and know when to use them and watch your cooldowns and that kind of stuff. So that was also pretty good. The gameplay itself, if you want to know kind of how it feels, the gameplay feels very much like a lot of BioWare games, especially, or the last game that they did, which was Andromeda. So if you played any of the multiplayer for Mass Effect Andromeda, it feels very, very similar. And this is kind of one of my cons with Anthem, which I'll go into later on. Apart from that, though, the movement and the controls in general were good, and that's good to know, because yeah, the action can be quite frenetic and quite quick, and you need to learn the controls as quickly as possible and get a grasp of them as quickly as possible to survive. One of Anthem's biggest strengths, I would say, apart from the flying, I would say, is the Javelins. The Javelins are really, really good. They each feel very unique. At first, I was having a very hard time with learning Storm. I really couldn't get into Storm. I really didn't enjoy playing as Storm until I actually did a few missions, and was kind of towards the end of the demo was getting a really good grasp of Storm and how to use it and what its kind of play style is like. The thing with Javelins is they each come with a different play style, and you feel it right away. The Colossus is the big chunky big fella, you know, very, very slow moving. He has a very, very unique play style, one which you really have to actually be on your, you know, keeps you on your toes and really think about how you're gonna fight the waves of enemies that they throw at you, how you're gonna survive. Even though the devs say it's got the largest health pool of any of the Javelins, regarded as the tankiest of all the Javelins, it's still very easy to die, and I did die on a numerous amount of occasions playing as a Colossus. In my opinion, after playing all of them, the Colossus was the one that I don't think I would actually put any time into, if I'm perfectly honest. But that's me, that's just my playstyle. Out of all of them, my favourite was the Interceptor, because it was speedy, very quick, the dual blades were amazing, very melee orientated, and that was my playstyle. The Ranger was very mediocre, very kind of in the middle, which obviously the devs have said there is a reason that they've made it like that. But I kind of felt it was a little bit underwhelming, didn't really create a massive amount of excitement in me, to be quite honest with you. But has a mixed bag of loads of abilities, and I'm sure will appeal to a lot of different players in the game. So the final one was Storm, and Storm, like I say, I couldn't get into. But towards the end of the demo, I actually found that Storm was probably up there with Interceptor in terms of my favourite Javelin. And it's very much a element-based, kind of similar to the Warlock in Destiny. It's kind of the status kind of elemental throwdown Javelin, you know, which kind of supports and assists the other teammates. And that was I think that was the thing that threw me, was the case that Storm is very much support based, and it's kind of that whole glass cannon kind of scenario, which definitely I can see that with Storm. And it's the case that you kind of have to take a step back in order to make full impact and do well on the battlefield and things like that, because it's very, very easy to be put down as Storm. So you really have to kind of be clever, be smart, and utilize Storm's abilities as much as possible to obviously aid your teammates. But in general, going back to the point, is all the javelins felt very, very unique. I think that is one of Anthem's strongest, definitely strongest throws, definitely javelins, and yeah, each of it feels very, very unique, and that I think is a very, very good thing. Glad that they have put obviously a lot of time and effort into each of them to make sure that every single person is getting a different experience within the game using each of them. I would say that another strength for Anthem, kind of mixing with the javelins and how to use them, I would say, is the loadout system. So obviously doing missions, you can get different perks, you can get different boosts or abilities that come with each of the javelins. So you could get, for example, like a mini rocket launcher for the Colossus, if I remember. You can get things like different elemental attacks for Storm, which each do different kind of abilities, have different ways in which they are used. For example, the Interceptor, you can get things like different throwing knives that have different elements again. And I thought that's really good, because obviously it's going to be a game then that they might throw challenges at you maybe at endgame. They might throw different type of enemies at you that require certain status elements or certain things that you need to use in order to defeat them. So I can see that Anthem then will come with a lot of different play styles. There'll be a lot of loadouts. I can imagine people will probably find like an OP kind of build for each of them. No doubt that'll probably happen at some point, and will probably go on for a little bit until it gets nerfed or balanced or whatever. But it's nice that there is a variety there, that there is, you know, you can have up to, I can't remember how many loadouts there were exactly that you could build, but it's nice that that is an option. And to add on to this as well, I thought that the customization was very, very good. The customization for your javelin itself is absolutely amazing. The amount of stuff that you can do in terms of the colours, the different type of textures, the different overall look of what you want your javelin to look like, whether you want the metal to be a metallic or a matte finish or a material based finish. There is a lot of scope there. It comes with the colours as well. You can map it out, colours however you want, and I thought it was really, really cool. There is a downside to this, and I'll probably put that in my cons thing, and unfortunately that might be an EA thing again that is quite common, I'm afraid, in a lot of their games. But we'll talk about the cons, which we'll talk about very shortly. But overall, the customization I thought was a nice touch. I thought it was very, very good. And again, it kind of adds to that RPG kind of, every single person's javelins are going to be very unique, very different. And yeah, that's a cool thing. I like it. I like it a lot. So in terms of the positives, that's probably that's what I kind of gathered from remembering playing the demos of Anthem. We're going to go into kind of the cons now. So the big thing for me with the cons with Anthem, the thing that I really didn't like the most, was the most obvious thing straight out the bat when you start the demo, was that the frames on console, anyway, I wasn't sure what it was like on PC. If you guys played it on PC, do let me know. But on console, the frames in Fort Tarsis, for me anyway, and I was playing on the bog standard console, so I wasn't playing on the PlayStation Pro or anything like that. I was just playing on the OG PlayStation. The frames for me were pretty bad. It's not to say that the frames in the actual game world were bad, so when you were playing the game, for me they were probably 30 FPS and they were stable, they were fine. Gameplay in general was okay, but for some weird reason there was a weird kind of feeling and texture kind of frame popping kind of issue at Fort Tarsis, and I don't know if that was because there was so many NPCs in the area, or the FPS style of what was there was causing that issue. I have no idea, but it was very, very obvious to me anyway. The frames were just not great. In terms of the game world, a big thing that I really didn't enjoy, and it's kind of, this is a point I'm going to kind of emphasize a little bit on one of the points a little bit later on, is the constant, what felt like respawning enemies again and again and again and again. Now I don't know whether that was because of the missions that we were taking on, and that it was a kind of a thing where the enemies are teleporting in through these things that were going on in the levels. I have no idea. It could just simply be that, which, if that's the case, then that's the case. However, I have a feeling that that's going to be a common theme in Anthem, in the missions anyway. But I just didn't like the constant respawning of enemies. It felt like at times it was non-stop. Now, I know that Destiny 2 has the same kind of issue. But the thing with Destiny 2 is they do it in a way in which the enemies kind of move about. So even though that they're constantly respawning, it doesn't feel like that they are just kind of stuck there waiting for you again. And it's, and it feels like the constant, you shoot in the same spots again and again and again and again. And that's kind of what I felt with Anthem, that when you were going through the missions, that it felt more like a chore than actual delight to go through, if I'm absolutely honest with you. And it was because of this reason. Because it felt like you were shooting the same enemies, 10 times in each little spot. It just felt like that's all you were doing until either your teammates had done the objective, which despawned everything, or you just flew past every single enemy and you went to a different spot. But even if you did that, the enemies were still there. So it didn't really matter, if that makes any sense. It only seemed to kind of go down when the objective was done. So, and it annoyed me as well, because if you were playing on a harder difficulty, again, I'm not complaining about difficulty. Difficulty for me was good. I'm glad that it was a challenge. I'm glad that you would get quite easily killed. I think that's a good thing. However, there is the element again that because of the spawns and the situation of where they were, there were times where you would be in a situation, you think you've cleared that area, obviously thinking that, not knowing they're going to respawn behind you, and that way then, 1 or 2 shots from a Devastator, which is a very powerful sniper rifle, or the enemy's equivalent to it, I don't know what it's called, but 1 or 2 shots from them and you're down. So for me, it was like a frustration thing. It wasn't the fact that I found it difficult, it was more the case of why do they have to respawn there when it's taken me 10 waves to kill the same amount of enemies in that area, and then they just reappear again after a 2-minute delay in the worst possible time to do so. So it kind of felt like it was like a wave game. It was like I was kind of playing a wave game again and again and again. I hope that they really address it, because it does make, in my opinion, doing the missions an absolute chore. Going on to that, I would say that another problem that I have with the enemies is you have the issues with the spawns, and then you also have the issue with the AI. The AI itself it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. It was the typical kind of Destiny AI, kind of the Warframe AI actually, in terms of that you stood by them and they don't do anything. And they actually do more damage to you the further away you are from them. So like the snipers are the ones that would kill you quicker than any other kind of enemy type in the game. And that's because you're stood halfway across the map and they've just pinged you. And that's again the kind of feeling that I got, that yeah, it was the AI wasn't great. So yeah, I just kind of wish that the AI was a little bit more unpredictable in that regard. Another big one as well, which I'm actually, obviously, at the time of this video being put out, Anthem is basically out now on, I think it's Origin Access, Early Access. I believe it's out for a lot of you PC guys. So it's out, the game is out. And I'm already seeing from footage in the game that the loading screens are still an issue. And so that was a very, very big thing in the game, that the loading screens was a big kind of issue for a lot of people, especially when it was doing the 99% loading screen at the first demo. I'm kind of seeing it again from feedback from people that are playing it now. There's still a lot of loading screens, still a lot of waiting around, which doesn't sound great. And I hope that for when the console versions get released, it may be better, but I can't see it if PC is not that great at the minute. So that doesn't fill me with a large amount of hope, if I'm honest. A thing that I've also seen as well is I've seen a lot of texture popping in the world, in the background, and that's again, I've seen this on PC, on the early access. I've seen a lot of people flying about and backgrounds, and backgrounds have been popping in, trees have been popping in out of nowhere, mountains have been popping in. It's been that bad, and this is PC, by the way. So for us console players, naturally, we've got to put up with a downgrade. Unfortunately, that's how it is. How's it going to be for us? It worries me. It really worries me. That's not another good thing to kind of report on. And I mean, talking about the world is gorgeous. As I said, that's one of the pros of the game. The world is gorgeous. It's very, very unique looking. Different biomes, which is good. However, a world can be gorgeous, a world can be very pretty to look at, but in my opinion it doesn't really mean anything if it's not populated. And this is again another big critique that I have about the game, is that flying around it, doing the demos of when I played the betas and that kind of stuff, it just felt barren. And the devs have obviously come out and said there's going to be loads of activities to do, which by the way I didn't see many in the game world to do. There might have been one or two, but I didn't see like... For me, Destiny has a lot of events, it has a lot of things to do in their world, which, okay, they've had to do that, they've had to implement more gameplay into the game because they were having the same issues as what is happening kind of in Anthem now, with the worlds being really barren, and they have to address this very, very quickly, because for me as a player and as someone who's experienced these type of games before, for example like Destiny 2, I don't want another world where it's barren. I really, really don't. It bores the living out of me, and it just stops me playing the game. It really stops me playing. I just won't invest in the world, or want to be quite honest. And okay, I missed the event that happened in one of the demos that was there, which basically spawned a load of kind of golems that were mini kind of boss fights, but it still doesn't change the fact that there wasn't, in my opinion, didn't feel like enough enemies in the world, or enough creatures, enough wildlife in general. The world just didn't feel populated enough. So that was another alarming issue. The biggest one, I've left this till the last because I think this is the one that is going to either make or break the game. And this issue worries me a lot. The devs have come out and said that their endgame content is what's called Stronghold, which funnily enough is actually something that's in Division 2. Now their strongholds are their mini raids, they're the higher end kind of content, and I believe that's what we did in one of the demos, was one of them. Now the devs have turned around and said that there are 3 strongholds to complete in the entire game at launch. Now each mission for me, I reckon, obviously the better that you get at doing the missions and the better you get the game, I can't see strongholds lasting longer than half an hour. So essentially you've got an hour and 50 minutes of, at most, of endgame hard, if you would call it that, content. And that worries me. Now they've come out with a kind of roadmap. It's not really, I would say, as transparent as Massive's and Ubisoft's roadmap for Division 2, and that worries me a lot, guys. I'm not going to lie to you, because you have to remember as well, Anthem doesn't come with any PvP. It doesn't come with any multiplayer, which maybe would have kept a few more people playing the game. It is predominantly a massive multiplayer, online only, kind of single player game with no PvP. It's solely PvE content. And I think in the long run, I think it's going to really be a detriment to the game. The fact that there hasn't been a mention really of any raids. I believe that they're called storms. I could be wrong about that. If you guys know any different, do let me know in the comments. But if I remember correctly, when the game first got announced, they were calling it storm. That they were kind of the really hard raidish kind of content. But the thing is, I haven't heard anything since. It's kind of been a bit of a roadmap of things that seem like story add-ons as opposed to actual raids or anything being announced of that nature. So it worries me, guys. It worries me, the end game of Anthem, greatly. That if they don't get their shit together, I can see Anthem dying in populace and in people streaming it and gaming or playing it in general. I can see it dying within 6 months. That's if there isn't raids to do, end game content to do. God's sake, if there's only 3 strongholds to play, I worry a great deal for Anthem. BioWare, prove me wrong. By all means, prove me wrong. I hope you do. I hope that you surprise everybody with a shit ton of endgame content, because the potential's there to do it. It just worries me how much actually BioWare, or in fact EA, actually care about the product enough. And I mean, a quick note as well on a con, and obviously a lot of people will know probably what I'm going to say already because EA includes them, and it's the case of charging people for skins and colours and sets and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's cosmetic based, and alright, it's not giving a pay to win aspect to the game. However, it's still crappy, man. It's still, I just don't get it. Don't get why you have to do it. I mean, you know, if they come out and say, right, well, all the proceeds, all the content, all the money that gets bought from cosmetics will go towards more content, then I'm game for that. That's cool. I'm happy for that. But they haven't even announced anything like that. So, yeah, it screams of EA, we're just going to take your money while we can so that you can look pretty in a game that we just won't give you any endgame content. That's honestly how I feel about it. But, so that's my negatives about Anthem, and the endgame stuff, I really worry about it. I'm going to go into Division 2. So Division 2 had a chance to play the private beta, which obviously was only available to those who had pre-ordered the game. Now, I was a massive fan of Division 1, even though it had its frustrations in terms of the incursions and the matchmaking systems in general. I found it to be a very in-depth game, and one that had, in my opinion, a lot of replayability to it and a lot of content. And that's not to say it was a perfect game at the start, because it wasn't. But I like the fact that Massive, I think, have learnt their ways with Division 2 now, and I think they know how to create a game that has content. And that is probably one of the biggest pros to the demo, is the fact that the demo itself had a lot of content for a demo. It had you completing, I think it was three missions in general, and you had the option then to do an end game mission later on, using the new specialization classes, which are a thing that I'll talk about in a minute. And on top of the missions, it had loads of side missions to do. It had an introduction to the camps and how you can upgrade them a little bit to get better perks and meet more influential people that can give you perks for other things in the game, which I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. But overall, I thought it was a really good system. I thought that it's basically Division 1 with a lick of paint, and I would say a lot more content. The introduction now as well of caches, and you can fight obviously some of the other factions, to which then they'll drop like keys and things like that, which you can then unlock on random loot boxes that are scattered around the world, which you can find. I think it's really cool. It makes you want to explore the world and try and find them, and you are rewarded with really good loot, and I think it's a very good system. So yeah, I felt that for a demo, as a player, you were given a lot, and the biggest feeling that I get from the game, and this pleases me immensely from Division 2, and this is a vast kind of difference than what I got from Anthem, is I don't think Massive and Ubisoft are afraid to show you what they can do in terms of content, and that pleases me. It feels like Ubisoft and Massive have a lot of confidence in their game, because they're giving you a lot of content, and they're giving you a good chunk of it, and they are promising a lot more content, and I can believe them. I honestly can. You know, their transparency in terms of their roadmap, this is again another plus, another positive thing that I've noticed, is that Ubisoft and Massive are not afraid to tell you what they're going to do, and they have done, and they've been transparent all the way through. Now, okay, we're not getting 6-man raids at the launch of the game, and I didn't really expect us to get that, but the fact that they have laid out plans as well as laid out seasons already, as opposed to what's coming and content-wise, I think is really, really good. And I think that that alone will make a lot of people buy the game, because I think for how much you will pay for the game, I think you'll get the content. This is one of the most alarming things that I found with Anthem, is that I don't know if Anthem will be worth the money in which you will pay for it in terms of what content you will receive. That's why I worry for Anthem. Division 2, on the other hand, you have to remember it has PvP, it has PvE. PvE element, put that to one side, the Dark Zone itself will keep people playing the game. It's proof, because people still play Division 1 Dark Zone now, still playing it now. So I think the fact that the Division 2 has them elements, I think will keep people playing it. Graphically, another pro that I liked is that graphically the game looks gorgeous. It's definitely an upgrade from the original game. I would say that the world itself has a very Last of Us kind of feel to it. There are definitely moments when I was playing the game and I was getting flashbacks to moments in The Last of Us in terms of its overall look and stuff like that. But graphically, it's really, really nice. Definitely an upgrade from Division 1, although atmospherically I would say Division 1 is still the better game. I would say that Division 1 is atmospherically the superior game. Division 2 has a nice contrast to it. I think it's a very nice different contrast. to Division 1's very cold and kind of lonely world, but it had a lot of atmosphere to it. Division 2 and the Washington, obviously, world to it, it does have the kind of post-apocalyptic thing going for it, but it's, I don't know, it doesn't feel as cold, because it's not. It doesn't feel as, I want to say the word intimidate, if that's the right word to put it. This kind of feel that I got. It was kind of like you were just on a sunny kind of vacation in Washington somewhere, and unfortunately everybody snuffed it and got a virus. That's kind of how it felt to me. But nevertheless, there was some gorgeous kind of like sunset moments. There was some really nice colours, just graphics in general. Definitely an upgrade. However, there were issues. The one con that I will say is there were issues with the cutscenes. The cutscenes still look a little ropey, if I'm honest. They don't look great. They really don't. There was moments where cutscenes looked really blurry. The character in general just looked really blurry. And yeah, it didn't look great, to be honest. So I hope they kind of fix that for the main game. But yeah, graphically overall, it was decent. I would say that the world, as opposed to Anthem, where I believed that the world was very barren, I found that the Division 2's world, it felt much more lived in. I think it's because for me, Division 1 felt lived in. There were moments where you were going in people's apartments in New York, and you could tell that it was like a rush job, that they, basically the alarm bells had gone off and people just rushed to save themselves, in mass panic or whatnot. And you get that feeling again with Division 2, that there's obviously, there's been riots, there's been people camping out in different locations and trying to survive, and you really do get a feel of it, especially again in some of the buildings. You go into some of the buildings and again you see people's lives and how it was affected and what people have done. You see a lot of wildlife, there's a lot of kind of boars and deers and things and dogs and running around, and kind of the same things of Division 1. But I would say that what they've introduced, and I think it's a very genius thing, is that they've introduced in Division 2, they've introduced the thing where the good factions, in which the people that you work with, the survivors if you want to call them that, what will happen is they will actually go out and scavenge for materials in order to upgrade their own base. And I think that's really good, because you can actually follow these people. And the AI is quite smart. It will go to a location and it will gather the resources, and in some instances you've got to protect them. If you don't protect them, they don't get the resources, and essentially you don't upgrade faster. That's essentially what happens. So I think that's a really nice twist. I think it adds more to the world. I think it makes it look a lot more lived in. There's the usual, the same thing that happened in Division 1, where they would fight the factions and they'd get into a kind of heated war, or two or more factions will come across each other and they'd start fighting each other and that kind of things. Insults are being thrown at each other. And similar to Division 1. But I do feel that the change of scenery, it does make it look a little bit more livelier, a little bit more lived in, and it's definitely a very vast difference to the feeling that I got in Anthem, which was just a very lush and very gorgeous looking world, but there was absolutely nothing in it. That's how it felt. So I think definitely Division 2 nails the kind of the real living open world feel to the game. I feel that in the weapons, again, the weapons in Division 2 felt, in comparison to Anthem, which they kind of all felt the same in a way. The weapons in Division 2 I thought felt very distinctive, each of them. Very, very similar to Division 1. If you play Division 1, it'll feel very familiar for you. But you do get some new weapons in terms of the specializations, a crossbow and things like that. I think it would have been nice to have included a bow. I don't know why. I think a bow might have been pretty cool to add in Division 2. Maybe there is one, I don't know, but I think that might have been quite a cool thing to add on, to be honest, or like a crossbow that you could use more often, not just as like a specialist. But that would have been cool. But overall, I think that the weapons were distinct in their own way. They sounded pretty cool, and yeah, they were fine to kind of handle. I mean, obviously, there was a clear, distinct difference from when I was playing with the rubbish weapons to then when I was playing the end game content with like really good weapons. There was a clear difference in terms of the recoil and the damage that it was producing and things like that. You could easily tell. But again, I think that's a good thing. I think that's what makes you want to continue to play the game, to work, to get the best add-ons and attachments and the best weapons, obviously, and the best perks, which is one of the Division's big strengths, is its loadouts and its gear and different loadouts. I mean, that's the final point I'm going to make, which in essence has a similarity with Anthem, is that they both bring a lot of tools to the table in terms of the loadout or a playstyle or how you want to go into missions and things like that. They both do that very, very well, and I hope that that is what will keep Anthem going. I worry for the amount of missions and content in general that you'll actually get. But Division 2, it's nice that they have kept with the formula for Division 1 and they've added a little bit with the specializations. I will mention one thing that I am not a fan of when it comes to the new playstyles and things like that in the cons. So the cons for Division 2, the big one for me was that the movement just still doesn't feel right. I think the only add-on, the only little difference that I think they've made is that the vaulting is a little bit faster. But the rest of the movement overall is still really kind of clunky, kind of, you know, it's like that very Ubisoft trope kind of Ghost Recon's Wildlands movement. Very kind of clunky. There are instances where it's the same thing that happened with Division 1, where if you're in a tight space, corridors and things like that, and you're getting shot by shotgun, you know, people or whatever, the rushers that are coming for you, you're pretty much screwed. There's not really much you can do about it. You get taken out. And you know, there are instances where I was getting trapped in doorways again, instances where you kind of panic pressing to try and get behind cover to make sure you're not getting shot at as much as possible. And then what's happening then is, because you're pressing it 2 or 3 times, because it's not as responsive, you're coming out of cover, and as soon as you come out of cover, you're getting shot by the shotgunner, and it's kind of a whole host of issues that are still there from the issues that were in Division 1, which kind of infuriated me a little bit. And I don't know how they're going to improve it, to be honest. I don't think they will. I think that's going to be one of its biggest downfalls, if I'm honest. And it's going to be interesting to see how that's going to hold out in the raids, because, yeah, it just feels still very, very clunky to me. It's a system that is, yeah, it's clever, but it's not implemented very well, and it hasn't really been improved on. So that was one of the big things. Another really big thing for me was there were instances where the AI is a bit of an issue. Even at the harder content, there were moments where you would stand there and there was a guy that was stood less than 5 feet from you, and he wasn't shooting you. There were instances in the game where, not with the AI as such, but there were technical issues where you were shooting somebody with a shotgun and they weren't registering. Little things like that, which is, you know, you could argue is expected from a beta, but yeah, it's still an issue. And the AI just wasn't great. I couldn't really put my finger on it. It was kind of the similar thing to Anthem, kind of similar thing to Destiny, in which that, you know, it's mobs and AI mobs, and it's kind of intelligence in general ain't really great. Just kind of stand there to make you shoot them. One of the big things, I just didn't like this, and it really frustrated me because I felt like I couldn't utilize, for me, what was some of my favorite builds and abilities from Division 1. The biggest thing for me was how they've changed the Seeker Mines now, which is really, really weird. Now, in Division 1, the Seeker Mines were quite easy to use. They were kind of quite good at getting you out of the pickle if you were in one. You know, it was a case that you would just press R1 or whatever it is to utilize it for whatever platform you're on, and the Seeker Mine would stand by you unless you got to a certain distance from an enemy, and the Seeker Mine would track the enemy straight away and go towards the nearest enemy. And it was good, it was useful, because obviously you've got a shotgunner and he's shooting you from a very short space and he's potentially killing you. It's the difference between life and death. And what they've done with the Seeker Mines, I just don't get it. I really don't. Because they've also done it where they've put the Seeker Mine on a timer. So if you... Essentially, I'll tell you what they've done. So what they've done is now, instead of the Seeker Mine having it kind of its own AI to track out enemies on itself, they've done it now where if you press R1, the Seeker Mine will stay by you, and you'll have an option button. You'll see an R1 on the screen and like an area of effect for you to direct the Seeker Mine for where you want it to explode. And it just annoyed the living hell out of me. Because A, for one, it wasn't intuitive. B, it wasn't fast enough to get to the area in which you wanted to go. And C, 9 times out of 10, by the time that the ball or the Seeker Mine got to that area, the enemy have moved. So it makes the Seeker Mine absolutely pointless, and I didn't get it. I didn't like it at all. And that is, they've changed the entire Seeker Mine mechanic. They've done that. So I really hope they revert it. I really do, because it's not like the Seeker Mine did a shit ton of damage in general in Division 1 anyway. It was kind of there to just get you out of the pickle, really. So that was my kind of really big issue with it. I just didn't like it. Another one was there's a turret that you can buy. The normal turret is good. It's exactly the same as Division 1's turret. There's a new one, however, called the sniper turret, and again it's an issue because you can put this sniper turret down and it does not do anything unless you direct it to. So there is an option with the sniper turret if you want to kill somebody. Now don't get me wrong, it does a hell of a lot of damage. It's a one-shot kill on a lot of stuff, but you have to basically direct it by pressing R1 on an enemy, and then it has to then swing over to then shoot that enemy. So I'm hoping you can kind of see what my issue with that is that by the time that you've done this, it's either A, missed the target by swinging rounds trying to shoot them and the enemy's moved again, or B, you're dead because it's a shotgun and it's already killed you by the time the sniper turret's got them. So can you kind of see my issue with it? So again, it's a nice idea, but for me it doesn't work, and I can't see a lot of people using it, because I reckon in the end game content you'll be dead by the time the sniper turret gets the enemy. Another big thing that I didn't like in Division 2, I think Division 1 nails it better than its sequel, and I wasn't a huge fan of the Dark Zone. I'm not going to lie to you guys. The Dark Zone kind of felt, the atmosphere, it's an atmospheric thing again. I think Division 1 nails the Dark Zone in every single facet and shape and being and everything. I think it nails it because by putting it in essentially what was the middle of New York, which I assume was Times Square and things like that. It had a really great kind of aesthetic to it that, you know, this is where the shits hit the fan basically, and look at the remains of what was one of the most populated areas on the globe, you could say, and is now just a wasteland. And the problem with Washington and the Division 2 map is it just felt, it's nice to look at, it's very aesthetic and greeny and a lot of foliage and grass and things like that, but it just felt very underwhelming. There wasn't like spots like there is in New York where you're looking up at like tall buildings and going wow, you know, and you climb up them and you end up there's a landmark and things like that, which I really enjoyed about the Dark Zone. It just didn't feel as big, and it just didn't feel as atmospheric and eerie. You know, there was no kind of eerie feeling about the Dark Zone in Division 2. And I don't know what they're going to do about that, but yeah, I just didn't, I don't know, it just didn't have that captivating kind of feel to it, which, you know, that could be a numerous amount of factors. That could be the atmosphere, it could be a lack of, obviously, it's, you know, it's not snowing, maybe because New York's aesthetics may be slightly better, you could possibly say. It's a whole host of reasons, but, and that may, I mean, you know, that could have just been that Dark Zone. I know that there's a lot more different areas of the Dark Zone now, I believe, in Division 2, so it could have just been that area, and maybe the other areas are populated with better buildings and much more eerie kind of locations and things like that. I don't know, but just for that location it felt underwhelming, and yeah, just not as good as Division 1's in my honest opinion. I would say another one which was a problem, a big problem actually with Division 2 beta, was the constant Delta error codes that we were getting. And it was getting to the point where you were doing a mission which would take you 20 minutes and it would kick you out after so long. And it worries me. And it worries me that even the devs were saying that if you were playing the game for 2 or more hours, you would have to, you know, come out of the game and restart the game in order for basically memory leaks not to occur. And I just hope that it's sorted out for the main game. I really do, because it could ruin it. It could ruin the game. It really could. It actually, that put you more on edge than the actual game itself. The fact that you were waiting for the game to give you the Delta code. You know, it was like, you know, I didn't really want to do any missions because it was kicking me out that much. I just felt, what's the point? There's no point in doing this until they sort it. Thankfully, towards the end of the beta, they had kind of sorted it and it was a lot more reliable, but it was still there. And I hope that for the open beta that they are gone, because obviously with an open beta there's going to be a lot more players now playing the game, and it's going to really test the servers. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out, and I hope that at launch they sort it, because it's not like, you know, I can give BioWare an element of the doubt because this is their, it's a new IP for them. It's the first time they've kind of ventured into this kind of territory. There's no excuses for Massive. There's no excuses for Division 2. They've had a game to sort this, and people can go in the comments, bitch in the comments, and start going, well, it's beta, expect it. No, they've already done a game that implements the same server types as well as the amount of people on per server. It should be better than it is. I hope that they get it sorted out. Apart from that, I really enjoyed it. I would say out of the two betas, out of the two games at the minute, the one that I enjoyed playing the most and that I wanted to get an itch for going back into that world was Division 2. I did really enjoy it. It was great to kind of play a newish kind of game again and really kind of loot and explore and do the missions and find out lore and things like that. I really enjoyed it. Anthem concerns me greatly. I would say at the minute, if you are a player at the minute and you are debating on which of the two games that you should buy, I would honestly, and I'm not saying this because I am a Division 2 fanboy or a Ubisoft fanboy, I am saying this as I'm trying to be as transparent as possible with you as my community, and to make sure that whatever you spend your hard-earned money on, that you will get a decent amount of content for your buck. And for me, Division 2 offers the most content, and that's just by playing the beta. It was just easily the most content out of the two games. And that's the thing that worries me the most about Anthem, is that I truly worry for the amount of endgame that is in that game. And my prediction, if I'm going to be truthfully honest with you, is that because of the lack of PvP, because of the lack of, doesn't seem to be a raid at the minute, because there only seems to be 3 strongholds, and from listening already to the early access at the minute from people that are streaming Anthem, the story itself isn't that entertaining. I just can't see the game lasting more than 6 months. I really can't. I think the only reason people would continue to play Anthem is to be about getting that OP build. But then you could say, what is the point if there is no content to use it on in the first place? And that's what really worries me about Anthem. Division 2, I have no worries because I know what Massive have said. They've come out and said there are going to be raids. When will that be? I have no idea. And that could be 4 months. We don't know. But at least we have that. You have a ton of missions, like in Division 1, where you could keep replaying it to get, say for example, an exotic weapon that will drop there, an exotic gear set that might drop from another mission. There is different world tiers obviously are going to return. There is now events that are happening throughout the world that constantly happen and that can reward you with different things and materials that will add for you upgrading your bases and all that kind of stuff. Or to unlock attachments for your weapons and all that kind of stuff. I just think that the scope for Division 2 and the amount of content that there is available far outweighs Anthem. I think that's what will keep players playing Division 2 easily for a year. And the fact as well, they have the Dark Zone, they have PvP in there. You'll get people, you'll get tryhards, you will get your trolls that will solely play Division 2 for the Dark Zone, because they did it in Division 1. So you'll get people easily playing months into the game's launch just to be able to do that. To be able to roll around with, I've got the best gear, I've got the best weapons, I'll just mow down everybody. That's just the fact of how it is. There are gamers out there that will play that way. Me, myself, I don't enjoy that type of experience, but it's an option. It's an option, and I will definitely check out the Dark Zone. I always will, because especially if the devs turn around and go, we've made changes to it, there is much more reason for you to go into the Dark Zone now and not worry about this, that, and this and that. And also, obviously, some of the best gear is in there. So, again, it's giving you a reason to do it. It's just more content for you to play. And for me, personally, I am more of a PvE type of guy. So, if I know there's more content on that aspect of the game, then it will make me more than likely return to the game in the hopes of getting the best guns, the best drops, the best gear, with the best perks in there. As opposed to a game where there is the potential to get the best weapons, the best perks and all that kind of stuff. But what is the point of using it if there's, say, 4 end game missions that you can do, and then the odd occasional event that will turn up in the world, and that if you miss it, oh well, it might appear again in 4 days. Like, that annoys the hell out of me. For me, that's time-gated content, and it's not something that I'm a fan of. But I've rambled on way longer than I should have done, guys. That's my impressions on Anthem and Division. I hope that you enjoy this much longer video than what I normally do, as well as the content on the video. If you have enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like. If you haven't, give it a dislike. If you enjoyed this type of video, do let me know in the comments, and if it gets enough feedback, enough positives, I may well do some more in the future, as well as impression videos and review videos and all that kind of stuff. But again, let me know in the comments if you want this sort of thing. And also, don't forget to comment what are your thoughts, which game are you going to be buying, which one are you most excited for. And yeah, after that, guys, have a great afternoon, evening, morning, whenever you see this video. I'll see you guys very soon. Bye bye.